Hi, it's Jeff here from VIP Vision. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to connect two Ubiquiti LiteBeam AC wireless access points to form a wireless bridge or a transparent bridge. Now, when I say wireless bridge or transparent bridge, what I actually mean is we're going to basically create a wireless Ethernet cable using these two products. When I say that, what I'm really talking about is anything that I send through the Ethernet port of this device is going to end up at the Ethernet port of this device, and vice versa. Anything I send up from the Ethernet port of this device is going to end up into the Ethernet port of this device here. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, there's certain situations where for some reason you won't be able to actually run an Ethernet cable or run fiber. Certain situations where maybe everything's trenched, it's impossible to trench, everything's concreted, or you've got a fairly long distance that you need to bridge, say 5 kilometers, possibly 10 kilometers. Using wireless access points in bridge mode really allows you some flexibility in the sense that you can put things a long way away from, devices a long way away from wherever your base is or wherever you need to connect to. So where can we use this? Well, obviously at VIP Vision, we're most interested in using it for wireless surveillance products and for intercoms. However, this could also be used for PCs or anything else that uses Ethernet. Basically, there's a lot of situations where this comes really in handy. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, I'll switch across to a PC here. First thing we're going to want to do is take a quick look at the Ubiquiti LiteBeam AC Quick Start Guide, which comes in the box for this product. If not, you can find it on the Ubiquiti website at the link that you can see above the screen here. Now, it's a very good idea to go over this because it shows you how you should be mounting these products. It also talks about some other sort of safety issues and any other things that you should be aware of. It also, a little bit further down here, mentions the default IP address, which we're going to come back to later. So 192.168.1.20. Before I do that though, I'm going to need to connect these products to their power supplies. Now, Ubiquiti with these devices ships an injector and obviously a power cable that goes along with that injector, and we're going to need to plug that into each of our units. So the other thing you're going to need, I should probably say, is you're going to need either a laptop or a PC with an Ethernet port to do this. You won't be able to do it wirelessly. So I'll just switch across to a different camera here. So as you can see as I sort of alluded to earlier, in the base of each of these products, you have an Ethernet port. We're going to be connecting a LAN cable directly into the base of this Ethernet port. Now, if we were connecting this and we were running it for real, we were actually going to configure this and set it up and put it up on a pole, I would be using a shielded Cat5 or Cat6 cable with the drain wire connected. However, for this, obviously we're just doing it on a bench, so I'm just going to connect them together. Now, I'd suggest that everything you do set up on the bench. You don't go and install your products first because it's going to be a problem if you struggle, if you've got anything else going on. So I'm going to take that one now and I'm going to do the same thing to the second wireless access point. I'm going to use a purple cable for this one just so you can see the difference. And there you go. So we've got our Ethernet plugged into this product as well. So switching back to the main camera here, now you can see I've got two wireless access points, a short Ethernet cable in each one. Now the next thing I need to do is connect these wireless access points to their own PoE injector, or basically their power supply. I need to plug them into their power supply. So I'll just show you this power supply here. Now, if you take a look down here in this power supply, you'll see that you have a PoE side and a LAN side. Now, the LAN side over here is to be connected to your local area network, or in this case, our laptop. However, the PoE side is what we're looking for right now. PoE is going to send the data and power to the wireless access point. So that's where we want to plug in. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to connect my first one into the PoE on this side. So just to be clear, wireless access point into the PoE port of the injector. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other device now, leaving this one plugged in. But again, I'm plugging it into the PoE port. Now they're both on their own injectors, okay? So this one's completely separate to the other. Now I'll just plug power into this one as well. So now these units are going to take a little while to power up. While they power up, it's probably worthwhile me noting that while I'm doing this on the LiteBeam AC product, it will actually work on, in what I'm about to show you, will work on any Ubiquiti product running airOS 8. So that covers everything from these little guys all the way up to very large power beam access points, which will go, 15, 20 kilometers. So now that I've left those there for a little while to power up, the next thing that I'm going to want to do is I need to connect my laptop to one of the injectors. Now, it doesn't matter which one of the access points, via the injector I should say, it doesn't matter which one, as long as you know that this is going to be the first one we're going to configure. And I'm going to start by configuring the access point. So this is going to be my access point. So remember, the purple unit is going to be my access point. So I'm going to plug in there. Now you'll see that if I switch back here again, inside these products, we have, you can just about see them there, we've got a power light on this side, and a little bit further in you can actually see a LAN activity light flashing. Now that's what we want. We want at least a solid light there. You'll probably see it flash a little bit. Depends on what your network you're connecting to or what laptop you're connecting to as to what you'll see. But basically we want to see two lights at least illuminated most of the time. So switching back again. So as I said before, I've got everything here connected. I've got one of these units now connected to my laptop. The other one is still just sitting here. So this one is going to become my station. This one is going to become my access point. So now I'm going to switch back across to PC here. So you'll know the default IP address is 192.168.1.20. Now, the first thing you need to do is actually set your laptop to have an IP address within this range so that we can contact it. So I'm going to minimize here. Now I'm running Windows 10, so if you're running Windows 7 or something earlier, this might be a little bit different. But the first thing I'm going to need to do is change or add an IP address within that range. Now, I could just type it in here. I could change my IP address to that. However, I've got a static IP address set up on this device. So I'm just going to add an IP address. So the IP address I'm going to add is 192.168.1, and I'm not going to use 20, obviously, because that's what the access point is already set to. So I'm going to set this to 100. Now you can leave the gateway, or subnet mask, I should say, default 255.255.255.0, and I'm going to go add. Now you can see that that address has been added. Now, obviously this is just standard Windows networking, but we've added an IP address. I'm going to go OK to confirm that. OK. And if you want to be sure that you've actually got that address now set up, you can click Details, and I can verify here that I have an IPv4 address of 192.168.1.100. Note that this is only necessary if you don't already have an IP address within that range set on the laptop or the device that you're using to connect with, but I find that it's certainly a good idea to check. So switching back again here, now you'll see that I've got that set. So I'm going to minimize this. Now I'm going to go back to Chrome or your web browser of choice, and I'm going to enter the IP address that I said before, 192.168.1.20. .192.168.1.20. Depending on the state of the unit, it'll take a little while to redirect to the HTTPS page, but once it does, you'll see it come up here. Now, this is the web interface of our access point. So the first thing I need to do is enter my username and password. Now, by default, it is UBNT for the username and UBNT for the password. Now, I have to select my country. This is very important as it will actually set up the radio inside the device to be legal for your country with regards to power output and frequencies. So I'm in Australia, so I'm going to set Australia. I'm going to leave the language set to English. Make sure you read the terms of use and click I agree. Once we click the login, this will set the unit up. Now it may take a little while because it's actually configuring the radio to have the correct configuration for your country. But once it does, you'll see that we've got airOS 8 and it's popped up and it's given us a dashboard. Now, you'll see that we've got this gives us a warning saying that we're using a default admin password. Now, it won't let me actually change anything until I change this password. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So as I mentioned before, my current password is UBNT. Let's change it to something else. I'm going to change it to today. So my password is now today. You probably want to set it to something different and something more secure. But just for the demo, that's what we've got. So this is now going to become our access point device. So I'm going to need to configure it as such. So if I switch back again, now, first thing I'm going to need to do is go to settings. And what I suggest you do first up is if you want to change the IP address range of this product, you want to probably do it now. I'm going to leave it alone just for the sake of the demo. But if for some reason you need to change it, change the IP range, keep in mind we're going to change the station IP address anyway. But if you need to change it from something different to 192.168.1.20, do it now. Keep in mind that you're going to need to also change your Windows networking settings so that you can access it afterwards. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is select my access point mode. So by default, we've got access point mode, point to multipoint, AirMax AC. Now that's good for the majority of cases, so I'm going to leave that alone. Our SSID is actually the name of our wireless network that we're going to generate between the two units. This doesn't really matter so long as it's the same on both devices. I suggest that you probably change it to something that you would like it to be. So in this case, I'm going to change it to VIP. Our channel width is essentially the size of, well, the bandwidth that the unit's going to use to transmit your data between the access points. Now, you'll notice that 40 megahertz is the highest that we can set at the moment. If we set access point to point, you'll find that we can actually go all the way up to 80 megahertz. So just be aware that you'll get more bandwidth if you're only going point to point. So actually what we'll do, we'll just leave it like that then. We'll leave it as access point to point, and I'll set it at 80 megahertz. Control frequency list, don't worry about that, leave that alone. Center frequency, leave that alone as well. Calculate EIRP limit. Now this is going to make sure that we're compliant with any of our laws that are relevant to the country that you set earlier. So I'm going to leave that alone so that I'm compliant with things, and this here allows me to reduce the output power. If for some reason I want to, if I've got my links really close together and they're interfering with something else, I can reduce my output power, but I'm going to leave that alone. Auto adjust distance. This controls how much data is in the air at any one time based off your distance. I would just leave that alone, leave that on, and then this slider down the bottom here, leave that the same. Max TX rate, going to leave that alone as well. Now, wireless security is the next thing you really need to set. So I'm going to come down here and select WPA to AES. Now, this works exactly the same way as your wireless access points at home, or your Wi-Fi at home would be set. So if I want to, basically I just need to put something in here that's unique to me and that no one else is going to know. So in this case, I'm just going to set, again, I'm going to set today. Oh, actually, let's probably change it to something a little bit different. I'll show it so that you can see it. I'll set it to minimum of 8 characters. So in this case, I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, strongly suggest that you use something a little more secure than that, but for this here, I'm just going to show you that our pre-shared key needs to be a minimum of 8 characters long, and it needs to be the same on our access point, which is the device that we're setting up now, and on our station, which is the device we're about to set up later. Everything else on this page you can leave alone. You can set the MAC access control list here, however, that's an advanced feature, don't worry too much about it. And the next thing we need to do is just save changes. So I've saved those changes now. Now, the things that we need to keep in mind before we go and set up the other end of this device now, I'll mention them as this product's rebooting. Before we set up the other end of the device, we're going to need to note down the SSID, which in this case I chose as being VIP Vision, and the pre-shared key, which I chose to be 123456778. Now, these will be unique to whatever you've just set. Make sure you write them down because you'll need them in the next step. So, you'll see that we're now, everything's saved, and our, as I said before, VIP, and if I show this, 123456778. Excellent. So now our access point is configured. So the next thing that we need to do is switch across to our station. Now to switch across to our station, what I actually need to do is unplug my laptop from my access point and plug that into the injector of my second Ubiquiti LiteBeam, which is going to become my station. Now, I'll switch back to my PC. You'll notice that it will have lost connection to the Ubiquiti device. That's no problem. Just close the page and we'll open another page and we'll connect to the exact same IP address since these devices are both out of the box defaulted to 192.168.1.20. Again, you'll see that we'll get a page coming up. Again, just ignore the HTTPS error. And we're back to this familiar screen. So we need to set our username, which was UBNT. This is our default settings. Mind you, this is not what we just changed to. UBNT. Again, we need to select our country. So I'm still in Australia, so I'm going to select Australia. English. Again, read the terms of use and click I agree and log in. Okay, great. So this is going to become our station. Okay, and when I say station, what I actually mean is one end of the link. Okay, so the first one that we set up is our access point. Okay, which is the head end of the link that you'll stick next to your server, your switch, your NVR in VIP Vision's case. And your station side is typically the end that you stick at your client. So your PC, your camera, your whatever it is that's on the far side of the link. So we'll call our access point the local side and the station side the far side of the link. Essentially, it doesn't really matter which goes on which side. As I said before, we're creating a wireless Ethernet cable, but it's usually a good idea to keep the access point at the end that your server's at or your main group of hardware's at. So I'll switch back again. Now, need to change our password again. So I'm going to, current password is UBNT, and I'm going to set the same password as I did on the access point, which is today. And change. It's important to note that you could have a completely different password on your access point and your station. They don't need to be the same. Now, the next thing I need to do is go to settings, and because I already have my access point on this address 192.168.1.20, it's a very good idea to change our IP address of our station. Otherwise, we'll no longer be able to connect to either our station or our access point once we've done the final bit of configuration and we've joined the access points together. So I'm just going to change this to 21, 192.168.1.21. Now, as I said before, it doesn't really matter what it is here that you set, so long as it's within the same range as we can access via our laptop, and that it's different to the other devices on the network, including our access point. Worth noting as well that all of this stuff is just for management of the device. It doesn't actually affect the operation of the device. So if there's no reason that you need to set this IP address within the same range as any of your other networking gear. So for instance, if you were using a 10 address, like 10.0.0.1 through to 10.0.0.250 or something like that on your local network, it doesn't matter what this address is set to. This is purely for the management interface, so the web interface. This is all we're doing. All we're using this for is connecting to the web interface so that we can configure the device. It's completely transparent other than that. Okay, so I'm going to change that to .21 and leaving everything else the same, and I'm going to save changes. Now the device will save the changes in a moment. Okay, we're applying changes. Okay, that's no problem. Just wait for it to refresh. There you go. I didn't even have to do anything. Chrome's already refreshed the page. So again, proceed. And now we're prompted with a login. So I changed this before to UBNT and today, the password. So I'm going to log in with that. Excellent. So now we've changed the IP address to 192.168.1.21 of our station. So we've done everything that we need to do with regards to setting up the hardwired or the Ethernet side of this device. Now we just need to change the wireless settings. So in here, we just need to match exactly what we had on the access point side with the exception of this bit here. So instead of setting it to access point point to point, I'm going to set it to station point to point. So I've set that to station point to point. I'm going to change this SSID to what I had before, which was VIP. Again, it's the network name. Now, if for some reason you don't remember what you set the network name to, you can actually click select here and you can search for it. So this is the one that I set up before. I can also select lock to AP, which will bind me to the other access point. That's sometimes good for security purposes. However, I'm just going to leave it alone for now because what you can do is if for some reason you have to replace an access point, it can get a little bit messy with regards to changing things around because you're then locked to the MAC address or the serial number of the device. So I'm just going to select this one, VIP, as I typed before. And again, you can type the MAC address in here that you want it to lock to, but I'm going to leave that alone for now. Channel width, leave it set to auto. Control frequency scan list, leave that off. Calculate EIRP limit, yes, we want to leave that on as well. Again, I'm not going to change the output power. Auto adjust distance, yes. Leave the distance alone, obviously, because we can't. We've left it at auto. And the max TX rate, I'm going to leave at auto as well. Now, security is what we were looking to set up before. Now, because I've selected the device from the list, it already knows, or we already know here, that we're WPA2 AES with a pre-shared key. So now all I need to do is type my pre-shared key in here, which I set before to, I'll show it as I'm typing it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As I said before, this will be whatever you've set the access point side to. So SSID and pre-shared key are the two things that you need to know that you set on each device. So as I said before, set it to station, SSID, and pre-shared key, and then click Save Changes. Now this will take a little while again, while the device applies the settings. And it looks to be done. So now we can jump back to our dashboard and we'll wait here for a little while. So after we've set it up, it will take some time before before the device scans through and does its DFS checking before it connects. But hopefully, if everything's going well, you'll see something like this. So you can see that our devices are connected together and we have constellation diagrams down here that look all right. Don't worry too much about what they look like. Really the only things that you're interested in is our TX capacity down here and our RX capacity. So yeah, we've created a wireless Ethernet cable using two Ubiquiti units on airOS 8.0.2. Depending on airOS version, this may be a little bit different, but everything that we just did here holds true. And now, if we wanted to, we could stick anything on one end of these devices on the Ethernet cable of one, and it will be able to communicate with anything connected on the Ethernet port of the other over quite a large distance. So yeah, as you can see now, we've configured those two devices. Now, the only thing you have to then be aware of once that's connected and is up correctly is, obviously we're going to need to mount these devices, but if we want to, anything we want to connect to feed in to this device to transmit to the other side must still go through the PoE injector or the power supply here. Otherwise, it's not going to work for you. Yeah, but hopefully that's been helpful. They're quite useful devices, particularly for if you need to get stuff to a faraway place or even just a close building that's just too difficult to cable. If you've got any further questions or comments, please leave them below. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in these sorts of videos, and hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks.